Welcome to the Mystical Truths Podcast. This is Rebecca, and I'm really glad you're here. Let's unlock your world. I've invited Eileen, who is a dear friend and a very artistic, creative soul, to share with us her experiences and even questions about how birds and other creatures are messengers of guidance and reassurance from non-physical. So welcome, Eileen.
Thank you.
I'm happy to have you here. I think this will be a fun talk.
Thank you, Rebecca. It's good to be here.
So tell us about your bird experiences. You mentioned to me that you've had some experiences with certain birds that you feel are messengers from the other side or information about those who have passed. So go ahead, tell us what your experiences are.
I lost my mom in January, and I found this year when I'm sitting out on the porch, especially talking to my sister on the phone, all of a sudden there'll be these cardinals, which I've heard lots of people talk about cardinals and everything. And one got physically on the porch and started squawking at me as we're talking about my mom. And I'm like, hi, Mom, good of you to join us. So I feel like somebody's there. And my dear friend lost her husband last year, and he was into birds, had one of those bird feeders that had the camera on it, and she's also noticed a lot of cardinals. So we started talking and wondering about, how this happens, why this happens. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about.
Yeah, because it makes us wonder, is that really what's happening? Is that for real?
Right.
I have a woman who every time she comes to see me here at my office, let me say first, the first time she came was because her father had just passed. And this bird flew right behind my window. And then one came and bumped the door while we're talking about her dad and to her dad. And so every time she comes, there's some kind of bird experience like that. And the first time she was here, I walked out the back door, which is my office is at the back door. And there's 3 steps going down to the ground. And on the second step, there was a feather. And this was about an hour after she left. And that was the door that a bird had banged on. And so it's easy for us to say, well, that's kind of cute. And maybe that was her dad, or maybe that was your mom, the cardinal. But it sort of leaves us with, but is it? How does that actually happen then?
Right.
And what those in non-physical tell us is that birds especially, they're influencing all kinds of stuff in our world to guide us and to sort of give us hints that they're there.
Those little nudges.
They're very subtle usually, not always, but usually. And they say birds are just really receptive, sort of like insects, but birds are a little bigger, easier for us to notice. We're usually not trying to shoo them away like we do insects, but I've had the insect experiences too, and definitely the birds and all that. So they say that they're very receptive to the transmission that's coming from the other side. In other words, the waves of thought. And they're very plentiful. There's a lot of them. They're quickly ready. They're very mobile. And it's just easy to blend with them. So they say what happens is our loved ones or any of our souls that guide us. I don't like to call them guides so much because there's just a lot of different thoughts around that. So the ones that guide us, all of the other side, they will project their attention or an impulse in the direction of, say, a bird or other creatures. And then they and that bird or creature focus their attention on you. So it's not like they're becoming the bird or the rabbit or whatever is being utilized in the moment. They're influencing, and they're sort of blending their focus with that animal for the reason of letting us know that they're there. And I think it's oftentimes more than one of them anyway, more than one soul. We tend to think that it's just one, like when we get a message or we get a sign, it's just one. It's often a group.
Okay.
We're so well tended to that there are all types of souls paying attention and guiding. And so it's just fun when we can connect those dots, and I know that they really enjoy it when we do connect the dots. They're not disappointed when we don't. They get it. They get it. But it is fun when we do. And you can imagine why it would be.
Yeah.
They're putting they're not effort, there's no effort on their end, but they're putting that thought there. They're joining with you. And it's nice when you get it and you recognize it. Even if it feels silly to say, hey, Mom,
yeah.
I know you're not that bird, but
I'm thinking about you.
Yeah, but say it. Like, why not? Because when we're open to it and we're attentive to it, we're going to recognize it more.
Okay.
It's not that it's happening more. It's that we will recognize it more. We'll finally see it when we weren't seeing it before. Okay. Which is fun.
And like those quiet times, I bet.
Yeah.
Maybe when you are sitting outside. Yeah.
Yeah.
As I'm sharing this with other people, also a friend told me her husband passed, her son got married, it was outside, and her husband was a tall 6-foot man. And she said there in the tree was the tiniest little bird that sat through the whole wedding ceremony chirping. And she's like, big guy, little bird. I thought it was really neat. She said, but she really believed that he was also there. And I do too.
Yeah. It gets to really be fun because like I have hawk experiences. I've had them for a long time and they're so unique and just in the moment that you can't deny that they're influenced by the other side. And my family even thought I was a little loony because I was having them, but it was just me by myself. And then when they started recognizing that this was happening sometimes when they were with me now, and now I wasn't so loony, right? Not that they really thought I was loony, but it's hard to believe something you don't experience. And because I kept saying like, these are so unique. And there was even, I'll just share a couple of them. There was one that flew right beside my car for a very long while, like on the driver's side. And it was hard I was trying to pay attention to the bird, but drive at the same time. And I'm laughing and having fun and thinking, this is just like so fun. Like that's all it is. Like they're not there to prove a point necessarily. It's just because it's fun. There was one time I was driving the car with someone and I said, I really feel like something good is about to happen, like really exciting. And I was driving, I went to the ATM machine and then came out and I was waiting at a traffic light to make a left. And I made the left across this big intersection. And just then this huge hawk came flying down right in front of my windshield and like sort of spun and did this belly up kind of thing. And if my windshield wasn't there, I could have reached out and touched it. I could see it's like real soft, fuzzy white fur on its belly. And it just did this weird flip and then up and away. And it went and sat on the traffic light thing. Because like I'm watching it in my rearview mirror as I'm going down the road. And it was turned my way just watching me go down the road. And the person I was with said, like, what was that? That never happens. Like what? And I said, that was the exciting thing. That was what I was feeling a little while ago. That is so fun. And it really, it's just for the fun of it, but it's also for the recognition that we're paying attention. We're playing this game with you. We're having this life with you. And you're not alone. And I think that's the real honey in it. You know, when your mother can show up to say, I'm still here and you're not alone.
Right.
You know, and there's so many stories, you know, books and books written, you know, about different stories that people share. And there's one I was just reading in Chicken Soup for the Soul, the Angels Among Us edition. I was reading this story, and I'm not big on the word angels either, just because there are so many different thoughts about that. And I agree with the woman that shared the story. Her little daughter said their angels are just like us, and I agree. So this story is about this woman. The title is Daniel and the Pelican. And this woman was driving home from work. It's a 6-lane highway, 3 lanes in each direction. And cars are screeching on brakes, parting in the middle of the lanes. And she's wondering what's going on. There's this huge pelican that's on the road and not bothered by anybody, not bothered by the screeching tires, not
Wow.
in any hurry to leave, just hanging out on the road. And so she managed to pull over and navigate her way through traffic to try to shoo this bird to the lake that was just off the road. And he didn't want to go, but she was able to shoo him and finally get him reluctantly to go down the hill into the water. And she said, I just made it back to my car. When I turned and looked, that he was back on the road again. So back she goes through traffic, and she's shooing him 2 more times. She did it. So 4 times altogether. And so now she said her and the pelican are on the curb, and she's just at her wit's end. You know, she's praying for something, like something has to happen. Like, I can't keep doing this. And the penguin was just preening its feathers, just not worried about anything, not really caring. So she said, there we stood. I'm reading the book now. There we stood on the curb like a couple of folks waiting for a bus. Suddenly, a shiny red pickup truck pulls up and a man hops out. He says, would you like a hand? And she says, I'm seldom at a loss for words, but one look at this very tall newcomer rendered me tongue-tied and unable to do anything but nod. He was the most striking man I'd ever seen. Smoky black hair, muscular, with tan skin, tender smile, dimples, the whole thing, hypnotic, crystal clear, Caribbean blue eyes. She said he was almost too beautiful to be real. She noticed on his shirt, his name was embroidered on the work shirt. It said Daniel. And he said, I'm on my way to the seabird sanctuary. I'd be glad to take him. And he said, I have a big cage in the back of my truck. And she said, oh, that would be wonderful. And she said, do you volunteer at the sanctuary? And he said, oh, every now and then. And she said, in my wildest dreams, I couldn't have imagined a more perfect solution to my dilemma. The bird was going to be saved by a knowledgeable expert with movie star looks who just happened to have a pelican-sized cage in the back of his truck, and he was on his way to the sanctuary. So she says, as I watched Daniel prepare for his passenger, I couldn't shake the feeling that I knew him from somewhere. And she said, have we ever met before? And he said, no, I don't think so, as he smiled at her. And she says, I held my breath. As the man crept toward the pelican, their eyes met. The bird meekly allowed Daniel to drape a towel over his face and place him in the cage. There was no struggle, no flapping of the wings, and no protest from the bird, just calm. It was just, the whole thing was very calm. And so she's, excited and thanking him. And he said, it was my pleasure, Michelle. And she thought, wait a minute. How did he know my name? She thought, I only knew his name because I saw it on his shirt. We never spoke of names. And so she said, she's baffled, but she goes about her day. And she said she called the sanctuary later to check on the pelican and asked if she could speak with Daniel. And no one there had ever heard of him.
Wow.
So she said that evening they're talking about it, her husband and her child, during dinner. And her little girl said to her, Mommy, I bet he's your angel. That's how you know him. Or that's why you know him. And she said, oh, but Daniel didn't have any wings, honey. And the girl says, well, a lot of angels don't have wings. And her mother said, well, how do you know this? And she said, oh, I see them. They're just like you and me and Daddy. And she said, at this point, I put down my fork and gave her my full attention. She said, Julie, why do you think the people you see are angels? And her daughter said, because God is in their faces.
Aww.
And I thought, that is so true. Those on the other side can influence people too. I'm sure they can appear in human form well enough that we can see them. I'm sure they can pull a truck out of the ether, however that works. So was that a real person that was influenced by the other side to help in that situation? Right. Or did they take human form and pull a truck out of the ethers? And who cares? It was one or the other. It was something. Maybe it's not even either of those. Maybe it's something else totally. But we know for sure because there are so many experiences like this that are happening. and have been happening forever. It's just people are more apt to talk about them now. That it reminded me of years ago, because again, it's a story that helps, but it doesn't really get your belief in place until you've had an experience yourself. And I've had several over the years, but this is one that really stands out for me. This was years ago. My kids were very young. My husband was laid off, and it was like sort of an ongoing thing. So we're getting frustrated with it and concerned. And I was just really feeling down. Mm-hmm. And I'm walking toward the unemployment office to drop off his claim. This is back when it was a paper and an envelope and you had to drop it off. And I had both kids with me, one in each hand. And I'm just, sort of moping down the sidewalk. And I got to the sidewalk entrance of the unemployment office. And there was this man who looked like a homeless man. I don't know where he came from. He might have been walking and I didn't see him, but he was just right there in front of me. And he looked at me and he said something along the lines of, "Hi, I hope you're having a nice day," or something. I don't remember the words because it was the sensation that was incredible. I remember looking at his hand and his fingers were dirty, his fingernails were dirty, and there was no judgment. There was something calming, something radiating that completely changed my energy, completely changed my disposition. And it happened very quickly. So he said something. I look at him. I just happened to look at his hand. I said, "Thank you," or I hope you do too, or something like that. Because the whole thing is like, it was just overwhelming. And so I took a few steps toward the door to the unemployment office, and I'm trying to figure out what just happened. And I turned around and I couldn't see him.
Wow.
And it was open sidewalks. There was nowhere for him to go. And I thought, I just had to stand there for a minute because I thought, I know what just happened. I know exactly what just happened. But the fact that it happened in my life right now,
right,
is something I'll never forget. And so I dropped the claim off and walked back, and I literally floated back to my car, I think, with the kids. And it didn't change my whole world. My husband didn't get called back to work the next day. Things did get better, but it was confirmation for me that we were being paid attention to, that we were not alone, and that the shit's real.
Yeah.
That's really real. And so I think that, some people might say, well, that never happens for me. And my suggestion there would be, think about it a little bit once in a while then. Wonder if it's possible for you. Because you can't invite it in and say it doesn't happen to you at the same time. Because we can never be in the problem and have a solution. They just don't be in the same space. Just like the woman in the story I just read, she was asking for a solution, a miracle, something. Like there has to be something because I can't do this anymore. It's not working the way I'm doing it. So she asked for a solution. She didn't stand there and think, this is terrible. It's never ending. This is not going to work. One of us is going to get killed. She said she even thought later that evening when she was sort of, just reflecting, she thought, I didn't even realize until now that was 3 lanes of traffic I was navigating through 4 different times.
Yeah.
I could have been hit by a car. And so, I'll always say that if it's not your day to die, you're not going anywhere. If it's your day for an accident, you might maybe have an accident. But so not only was it not her day to have either one of those, it was her day to have an experience with the other side that not only, right. And here's another reason why they do this. It was for her. But then she told the story. Now I'm telling the story.
True.
Other people tell the story. It just ripples out.
Well, she opened up to her daughter, too. And her daughter felt more comfortable. And we always say kids are more intuitive and receptive to that stuff, aren't they?
They definitely are. Sure, because they have it. And she even mentions that in the story that, she said it made her realize that things that she had heard before about kids are more open and more intuitive and more available to this is true because they have not been conditioned out of it.
Mm-hmm.
When we were young, my brother had 2 imaginary friends, right? Everybody called them his imaginary friends, which I'm glad they did that. That was better than saying you're crazy or you're just making that up. But he played with Alice and Palace. Those were his imaginary friends. And I don't remember a whole lot about it. He's 5 years younger than I am. I just remember that he used to play with his imaginary friends a lot. And everybody just thought, oh, that's cute. He's playing with his imaginary friends. Now, it would have been even nicer, maybe because we're talking about this more and more now, more people understand, it would have been nicer if they would have known who he was actually talking to.
Right.
Those weren't imaginary friends. It's very common for kids to have a nice connection with the other side. I think we all do when we're born. And I think we all do for quite a while. But it doesn't take long for us to get distracted by the external environment and then to overhear things.
Mm-hmm.
Even I think with this woman's daughter saying, that was your angel. She's probably picked that verbiage up somewhere. Mm-hmm. Because even she knew they don't have wings.
Mm-hmm.
Because, of course, they can project the image of wings if they want to, if it helps us understand. And in a way that it's a symbol for non-physical. So if you see an image of a statue of a person, well, that's a person. But if we put wings on it, oh, that's not a person anymore. It's something from the other side. It's a non-physical, in physical form. Mm-hmm. So it's a way for us to differentiate, I guess. But there are many, many different, there are a lot of birds flying around. Not all of them are trying to get our attention. Not all of them are saying I'm a sign from the other side. They're just having their moments. They're doing their thing. They're following their impulses. And sometimes that impulse says, go look at Eileen. Like there's another story in the book of a woman who woke her daughter up. Her daughter is an adult. Oh, this book's like 10 years old, so I'm sure she's even more of an adult now. But she woke her daughter up really, really early. Way earlier than she normally would have been getting up. And she said, come here, look at this dove. There's this beautiful dove that has been sitting in this bush cooing forever, like for minutes upon minutes. And she said, it's just sitting there looking at me. And so her daughter, goes into the room and she looks and she said, wow, that is interesting. And she said, we just stood there for minutes, just watching each other. And then it flew away. And the daughter said something like, oh, that was interesting. And her mother said, no, that was a sign. And she said, a dove's a dove, Mom. She said, no, that was a sign from Oma, who has passed. Because Oma was in the hospital. She'd been readmitted to the hospital a few days prior and was having some health conditions or whatever. So I don't think they really knew whether she was going to pass or not. But that dove to the mother, she felt was her sign that this dove is here because Oma has just passed.
Okay.
And the daughter said, well, I don't think so, but whatever, I'm going back to bed. She said, I no sooner got to my bedroom and the phone rang. Oma had just passed. So, these are true stories in this book. Like I said, there are a lot of stories. And if any of you out there want to come on the podcast and share your stories, I'm more than open to that. Because I think the more we talk about it, the more we'll expect it. And then the more we'll recognize them when they happen. And I was thinking about the symbology of birds, and I didn't look it up, but because I just wanted to get my own fresh perspective on it. I have in my dining room a bird feeder that suctions under the window, a big one, and it even has a light on it, like a solar light. And I feed the birds and the squirrels. I put some on the window ledges and all that. So I'm always watching the birds and the squirrels, and they have so much fun. So I'm thinking about the bird feeder and how the birds are free to come and go as they please. There are a lot of them. There are a lot of different types of birds, a lot of variety. And they just sort of come and go, just like the souls on the other side come and go. They're always here with us. They're always flitting around. And even like the doves that I have come to my window, I think they're just so funny because their doves are kind of big. These are mourning doves. And they're very flappy, like they flap, 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 and they're very noisy, and they do coo. But another thing they do is they'll sit on the window ledge, and they'll duck down to where I can't see them, and then they duck up again. They come up, and then they'll watch me, and they duck down, and then they pop their heads up again, and they watch me. And it's just so fun to have fun with all these different types of birds that come.
It is.
But it does remind me of the other side and how they're watching. They're playing games. They'll duck and then they'll watch their what, and then they come and go. They're aware of us. We can't get too close, or they sort of seem to fly away. In other words, we get these subtle signs and messages and things like that, bits of information from the other side, but we can't grab onto them and hold them. We can't call them in. I can't sit in my dining room and say, okay, birds, come on right now. I want to see 3 of you right now. I could, and that may happen, but not when I'm demanding it. If I'm daydreaming about it, I would love to see some birds right now. There will be birds that come. So the more ease we put into life in general, the more available we are to the guidance that is around us all of the time, not just in birds and animals, but in other people. The other side tells us that we are often the bird that is delivering a message to somebody else without realizing that we're doing it. There are times where you just have an impulse to say something to somebody, and you may never know that really helped them in that moment.
Right.
Or you may just have an impulse to smile at someone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, kids are awesome, because I don't know what's up this year, but twice this year I've been to 2 different amusement parks. And each time I've had a young girl, not the same girl, obviously, these are 2 totally different parks, a young girl stop and look at me and say, "You are so beautiful."
Oh.
I'm thinking I'm hot. It's like, I'm not looking. It's so funny because I can tell they're not looking at me.
Okay.
They're looking at my inner being. They're seeing something that I think all kids see. It's just, I'm probably more open to them actually saying it to me because I know what they're saying. And both times I just looked back and I said, thank you. Thank you so much for that. I didn't feel like I had to say, and you are too, or just be in that moment and appreciate the moment and let it be whatever it be's, but take the honey from it.
Right.
Know that the other side is speaking through children, adults, birds, squirrels, experiences, not even just like they're speaking through billboards, they're speaking through license plates, they're speaking through all kinds of things all day long, every day. Now, we don't have to constantly be looking for those and trying to connect the dots. We'll make ourselves crazy by doing that. Just be aware and be willing to say, well, that was interesting. Like the next time any of you out there say, well, that was a coincidence, stop for a minute and ask yourself, what was it? Because there really aren't any.
I know.
And another thing to think about birds is they have a bird's eye view. They can see a broad view or the bigger picture than we can. So that's another symbol for a bird, because non-physical obviously has a bird's eye view, bigger than a bird's. They can see what our intentions are, what other people's intentions are, what our desires are, where everybody's at. Source is constantly synchronizing all of us, everything. We're free. We're doing this of our own free will. We're choosing as we go and all that, but they are guiding us and influencing us because they have that broader vision. So the next time any of you out there think something like, something simple, like what store should I go to? I want some groceries. There are 3 grocery stores within pretty easy reach from me. So this is what I teach in intuition development. Instead of thinking, well, this one has double coupons, that one usually has better sales, this one, instead of getting your mind involved in it, get your feeling sense involved in it, and just feel like, I don't know, which one am I really feeling right now? If I just put all 3 of them energetically in front of me, which one am I gravitating to? It'll be subtle, but pay attention to it and just go. Don't look for the burning bush. Don't think, I'm going to Giant Eagle. I don't know if anybody else has Giant Eagles, but we do here. I'm going to Giant Eagle because I'm averting an accident if I go somewhere else, or because I'm going to meet the man of my dreams. It's not, it maybe, but just go. Go and follow the impulses, because it'll work out better for you. It'll be a good experience for you, because they know for you right now, with what you're looking for, which one would be the better experience for you. So if you can start with little things like that, it's easier when you want to ask the bigger questions. And if you want a sign, ask for it, but then expect it to come. Because if you don't really expect it, you won't see it. Or if you expect it to be one type of thing, bring me a red cardinal right now, Mom, to show me that you are listening and you're paying attention. That may work out, but most often it won't, because you're trying to make something happen. And you're only allowing one possibility for your mother to give you, a sign that she's there. Why not say, a cardinal would be great because I associate cardinals with you, but hey, I'm up for anything. Find a creative way, Mom, today to just, let me know that you're paying attention. And then you pay attention so that you don't miss it, because it'll happen. But oftentimes an hour later, we forgot we even asked, and it came, right, and we didn't connect the dots. You can also ask, say, let's be really playful about this. Make it so I can't miss it. I don't know what it is, but make it so I can't miss it. You know me well enough. Right? Mm-hmm. So 2 things are happening when you say that. One, you're inviting that experience in a nice, curious, playful way, which is magical. And you're reminding yourself that this is possible. And so when the birds show up, or the whatever sign it is for anybody out there, appreciate it and expect more.
Well, I wanted to interject. My mom went into hospice for a couple of days right before the end.
Okay.
And the hospice started out as a house, and then they connected it through like a glass walkway, and now they have more of the hospital rooms.
Okay.
Type of deal. And when you walk through this glass walkway, it had a ledge on the top, and it was just full of ceramic birds that people had. So it is a definite thing, Mm-hmm. And then the one nurse goes, well, if you see something that hits you, take it home with you. So I mean, they're all there too. She was really in tune to them passing and feeling loved ones around and everything. So it was a very nice experience at the end too.
That is nice. And I'm sure, I've talked with some people who work in hospice over the years, and I've heard stories of others. I think there's even a TikTok hospice nurse, I can't remember her name, but she shares stories like this, where, they do have experiences that they just can't deny when around people who are dying. Things that they tell them, things that they see. And so anybody that's having a little bit of a hard time, or maybe a very hard time believing any of this, do your Google searches, do your TikTok searches, look for the experiences that other people are having, because in that, you're not really going to totally convince yourself, but you will open yourself up to the experiential learning and belief that then will pretty much lock it in for you, because there's nothing like having the experience yourself. Right. And even when people have these experiences, they oftentimes will say to me, did that really happen? Or
I can understand
was
that.
that really, like the one woman said that her husband had passed, and she laid down to take a little nap. And she said, just as I was like maybe drifting to sleep, she said, he was right there in front of me, like radiating in front of me, just hovering. And she said, he looked amazing. And she said, and then he was gone. And she said to me, did that really happen? And I said to her, you had the experience, did you not? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, then it happened. But do you see how fast we are to think, did that really happen? Mm-hmm. Am I crazy? Is that my imagination? And that's what the woman in the pelican story said. She was, after that experience, she said, I was wondering if I was just maybe losing my mind. We're so quick to doubt.
We are.
And talk ourselves out of things.
Yeah.
There's a woman that I was talking with years ago, and her husband was passed, and he had brought some information through for her, and it was all great and everything. And I ran into her about a month later. No, actually, it had to be longer than that because it took her a month to really realize this. She said that the day we talked, that evening, she walked into her dining room and the light was on in her china closet. And she thought, well, I didn't turn that on. And she went to unplug it and it wasn't plugged in. And she said the light eventually went off. And she just thought that was really strange. And she said, it took me almost a month before it hit me that was my husband. And I said, well, of course it was. It was the same day we talked and the light was on. And she said, yeah, but like it didn't hit me until like almost a month later. And I finally realized that was him. It had to be him. And so it just goes to show you how people can be so not even thinking about it, like not connecting the dots at all, even though we had just talked about him that day.
Because we are so busy, our minds are going all the time. And when somebody passes, there's a lot going on.
Yeah. And he had been passed for a while, so this was not new.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But too, and you are right, that's always there. But I think that people are just so used to maybe this not being a thing that they don't see the dots to connect.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he had said to her the first day we talked was that she was holding on to everything that he had. And he said, let it go.
Okay.
And she said, I've kept everything the same since he passed.
A lot of people do.
And he said, let it go. And so I think that talk with her and then the light and then the realization a month later, finally, there's no hurry here. We're eternal. We are eternal. So we have plenty of time. There's no hurry. So even a month later, this was just all setting in until it could get her to a place where she could really recognize that he was really still alive and that it is okay for her to go on, and let stuff go. So it's always fun to talk about the other side and making it more real for us. I don't think we have to be trying to, even as much as I talk to people and I research and I have my own experiences, I'm not constantly trying to be on the other side. We came here to live this life. We should be focused here and having this life, but it's nice when we blend, when we recognize that we're co-creating here. We have free will. We're calling the shots. Life isn't happening to us. It's happening right along with us. And we're never alone in that. That there's a bird's eye view that can be very beneficial and can even just pop in and say hi. Or how about if I just fly beside you for a while? Won't that be fun?
Right.
Stuff like that.
Right.
Well, thank you, Eileen. Do you have any questions?
No, this is great. Yeah. I hope we help some other people. Huh?
Me too. I think that, like I said, the more we have fun with this, the easier it's going to get for everybody.
Feel comfortable sharing is what I say. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Talk to people about it. You'd be surprised. Everybody has a story.
That's true. There are a lot of people with stories that aren't being told necessarily. Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's all get it out there, share. Yeah. So for all of you out there, Eileen and I both wish you all the best. You can find me at mysticaltruths.com.